There you go. So yeah, today is a holiday. It's called Memorial Day. And when I was a little boy, especially our relatives that had died in war, you'd go take care of their gravestones, clean them up, leave some flowers and whatnot. And a whole bunch of people will still be doing that. But now I think it's a J.C. Penney, sheet sale day, kind of like President's Day. Yeah, isn't that crazy how much that's changed over the years? But that is where we are, sir.
Is
Hey,
it time?
I got a funny one for you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Since both you and I have done comedy in the past and still consider ourselves to be reasonably funny, I am getting trolled by like two high school kids that are admirers of my political enemy, Ryan Walters. And
Uh-huh.
they were like, Conor McGregor says your bar sucks. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I thought, I don't want to be the person that abuses in a mental way, some fucking idiots from high school, but I'm pretty tempted. Uh, so, and then they wrote me something else and it was in poor English, Deepak. I'm like,
Oh God.
right. How do we handle such viciousness? Conor McGregor, man. Oh,
What do you
he
think?
said your bar sucks and you're an embarrassment to your people. And I was like, you've seen Conor McGregor, right? But my thing is how small of a person do you have to be to think he knows me or that I know him? Because they're just throwing stuff out there. Probably Googled Irish, and that's who came up.
Sounds like when people tell me an Indian name and ask me if I know him, and I'm like, yep.
He's only from about 600 miles away, and in between us are 500 million people. Yeah, it's classic. Absolutely classic.
Good Lord, he actually has little minions who are answering or replying to his shit.
Well, one thing that I would say, so right now, and I don't know if it's happening worldwide or this is something we started in America. So in Kansas City, Missouri, where I'm from, once we started banning smoking in social areas, which I thought was a good idea,
Yeah.
cigar bars open. So, you always do this one thing and then you get this pendulum swing to the other side. And so we've got this alpha male thing going on here. And that was what started all of this. There was a picture of this politician with one of these boys, because they're
Uh-huh.
boys, like 16. The reason libs don't like us is because we're alpha males. And you go, and I wasn't even really trying to be mean. I just said, hey, friend, if you're an alpha male, everybody knows it. If you have to tell them you're an alpha male, you're not. That's what started it.
No God.
So, so I believe I engaged them. It's probably my fault.
Encourage these people.
Well, and I understand as our political stuff goes to the anti wokeness stuff that this alpha male thing makes a comeback. But
Hmm.
are you familiar with the baboon study and the alpha males with the baboons or no?
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay, so and I can't remember whether it was Jane Goodall or somebody else that was actually studying these groups of baboons, and so a bunch of meat was dropped off into the area where they went and got their food, which was basically a dump, right?
Hmm.
So the alpha males literally, kick the shit out of all the other males and leave them in line, so they get to go eat first. So they
Hmm.
go over and eat, and the meat was poisoned, and it killed all the alpha males. And so the person running the experiment was like, my God, what am I going to do? I mean, that was the society. That's how it ran. They thought their whole experiment was over and wasted years upon years upon years of their life. And what they found out, as soon as the alpha males were gone, they weren't picking on the next males who then went home and picked on the females. And everybody was just fighting all the time. Once the alpha males were dead, it was over. Everybody got along.
Oh wow.
Right. Nobody sees that coming, do they? Because you think, no, there's got to be somebody in charge, man. And it's going to be me, the guy that can't do proper English. It's an interesting thing. And I'm not here to teach 17-year-olds that are trying to be cool anything, because their brain has not developed back up here yet, where, that'll take them 10 or 15 years. But I just thought this was kind of depictive of what we are seeing in our little right-wing part of America here, is this next group. And yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry to say, in my experience in life, these kids usually come out of the closet in their 30s. I mean, thou protesteth too much, and I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. But, it's their newfound friends would probably be the problem.
That is so weird. I don't know how it actually works here. Also, I don't know whether it's that little sheltered life that I live where I don't see all these things. Maybe it just does happen. And I'm hardly ever on social media besides for like work shit.
Right.
So I don't get to see this aspect of the culture and humanity.
I'm unfortunately on there all the time because of work.
Oh, goodness.
And I would gladly trade that part with anybody. But I use it as a tool to affect political change. So I can't be surprised when somebody's trying to use it back at me for the same thing.
Yeah.
But they've got to be witty. I am not going to be insulted by a stupid boy that can't be witty.
Or speak in the correct sentence.
Correct. Man. I mean, look, with ChatGPT, he could punch in stuff and come up with way better cut downs for me than that.
Do you know people who are actually conscious about grammar and spellings are more likely to not make mistakes because they're so second guessing themselves that they'll Google all this shit when they're writing things out? Right. Whereas the arrogant ones who think that, oh yeah, my English is flawless, are the ones who'll constantly keep fucking up on emails.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. You know what gets me is voice text. Because I'm generally at a stoplight in my car answering somebody. And if they know me, they'll figure out what I meant to say versus what I said.
Yeah, I've known you for long enough where nowadays I just go through it and I'm like, yeah, I pretty much get the gist of what this is on voice text.
If somebody asks me for an open records request of my text, they will think of that I'm a drunk or that I smoke weed all the time.
Or in my case, where I'm like, did Sean have a micro seizure while doing this?
Right. Exactly. So yeah, that's my thrill ride right now. I'm being stalked by two 17-year-olds. They're gonna own the libs, man. They're gonna own the libs. What else did we have yesterday? So I don't know if you remember the Paseo Art Festival. Pretty nice little art festival. So it's kind of like the local artist put this one on. And God, we went down beautiful weather. So they had probably throughout the day, maybe 10,000 people, which usually they would have about 1,500 or 2,000. So it was pretty nice. But the reason I tell you this is my wife and I went out to eat afterwards, and hopefully other people will find this funny other than just you. And there's nowhere to eat down there because there are 10,000 people, right? So we ended up in this area that's kind of like a bar area. And we end up going to a place. Do you remember a place called Chicken Beer? So it's like chicken and beer.
Yeah, it's like that house, right? Which they've converted into a restaurant. Yeah, I've been there. Right.
And so she is hungry. I just need something to eat now. So we go in there, and of course it takes forever. But you get kimchi fries and you get chicken wings, but with really, really pretty interesting sauces and pretty tasty. And she was just not having any of it. And I said, Kathy, I appreciate the fact that you tried to come here and be pleasant, because she only eats Italian food, Thai food, and Chinese food. Now, she will lie and say she eats other stuff, but that's all she eats. Isn't that crazy?
I don't think I've ever seen her eat anything beside those three that you mentioned.
Right. Yeah. And I'm totally fine with it because I eat everywhere else with my friends in the meantime. But I would never be able to see her sit in a place and eat the stuff that I do on a regular basis. But I love her to death.
You were telling me about the cigar bars, right?
Oh, yeah.
The interesting thing that one of my friends was telling me was when they won against the tobacco lobby in the US back in like the early 90s, And that's
Yep.
when I think most of the bans came into effect, and also the
Mhm.
Surgeon General warning, and they had to pay
Right.
millions or billions, I don't know what it was, in settlements.
Right.
The only reason all the tobacco companies were fine with it was because they were like, okay, we have the emerging markets to go to, and they just
Right.
say, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, we can
Well,
still
they.
like get cigarettes like one at a time here.
Mhm. Oh yeah, my old New York City type. So here's here's the interesting thing on that. We are all concerned with fentanyl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's concerned with fentanyl and everything. There's a new drug called Tranq, Tranq, and it's animal tranquilizers mixed in with heroin. And so you can see some video of a place called the Badlands in Philadelphia, which they just basically cordoned off this area, and that's where all the junkies are, and they just stay there till they die. And the police look the other way. It's. I mean, it's frightening to see this dystopian nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
But this trank stuff, you just end up leaning over like, and the thing is, though, we lose thousands of people every day from smoking 50 years ago and 40 years ago and 30 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever money the tobacco people had to pay out is like the people that produced Oxycontin. They're
Yeah.
just giving you back a portion of the profits. You're just the mafia at that point. They're still selling their shit. It is so are you familiar with the original money in America was actually earned off of tobacco? Are you familiar with any of this?
No.
Okay, so the Spanish um, controlled tobacco at the time, and their
Mm-hmm.
deal was if you or I, as a citizen, had tobacco seeds, it was a death penalty
Oh wow.
because they controlled the entire thing, knowing and everybody's always known it's addictive and everything else. It's just really profitable unless you sell weed. It probably was more profitable, but
Mm-hmm.
it is our entire economy in America was based on tobacco. And we
Oh.
were sending that shit all back to Europe and mostly England.
Mm-hmm.
Our frenemies over on the other side of the world. But isn't that crazy? That's where it all started. So if there was no tobacco over here, because there was no
Mm-hmm.
gold in North America to have, that was all South America.
Yeah.
Where they were going in and cutting off the people's hands if they didn't come out with enough gold for the day.
Oh
They were
God.
treated so. Europeans have such a great reputation worldwide. They really do.
Oh, see. Have you seen
Have
that
I just?
the cobalt mines somewhere in Africa?
Yes, I have.
Oh
God
God.
Almighty!
Can you imagine that that's what's going into all our phones, our electric cars? Even
Right,
our solutions for the future are tied with abject human poverty and misery.
right. Yeah, and we call that progress some way or another. So you can abstract yourself with a phone. Okay, there is fracking water or water that comes from fracking that ends up back in the ground from oil wells.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there is a development of a science. For some reason, that water that gets pumped back into the ground has cobalt in it and can be mined from there. So the future of cobalt is going to move from that version of slavery, which that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
That is modern slavery. To it will be this unusable. I think the term is brackish water. If I'm pretty sure I've got the term right.
Mm-hmm.
I should know more because I'm in the oil part of America. But if that brackish water turns
Mm-hmm.
out to be able to be used in the way that it's described, that will change that forever.
Ah, I probably
And
just
we will make use of the world's shittiest water.
mm-hmm. Rather than it just going back and polluting some aquifer somewhere.
Right. Well, and we don't we know there's salt water. You drill into the ground, you get fresh water, you get salt water, you get all this stuff. And when they pump this back in, they could be polluting a field as big as the continent of India, and we just don't even know it. So
Yeah.
it'd be great to be able to extract some of these chemicals and use them for something different. So there may be something coming soon on that one. Not soon, 5 years, 10 years.
That's a weird part that you don't hear too much about all the new innovations that show up. But on a commercial scale, like think about all the startups that I work with and
Right.
you hear about as well. Like
Right.
anybody who pitches us an idea, it's probably some stupid repurposed thing that they know for sure makes money. It's
Right.
not like
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel to figure out how to create something new. You're just trying
Right.
to
Yeah.
recycle this human consumerism mindset and be like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to get a better percentage on that platform as opposed to this.
Right.
Innovation,
So
don't see it anymore.
a friend of mine said, if I ever start up a retail business anymore, it has to be something addictive. And he now owns 6 coffee shops, and you and I have had coffee at a few of them. If it's not addictive, he was not getting into it. Now that is
Mhm.
a frightful mentality.
I know.
But it,
Like, I wish I would have that type of perspective when we go to
mhm,
do something.
right.
Like we were
Well,
talking to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm getting ready to sneeze. Give me a sec. You might want to kill this for you. You, holy shit. Hopefully that isn't the start of 10 sneezes. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. We were talking.
Oh, addictive
Right.
products that are only addictive. That would be a
Right.
real cruel, shitty way to look at business, right?
But it makes sense. That's the scary thing. So I have always said, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this on here.
Mm-hmm.
I have always said, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this on here, is about fentanyl. It
Mm-hmm.
makes no sense to me from a business person's perspective to put fentanyl in drugs that are going to kill the addicts you're trying to make money off of,
I
because
know.
that's all it is. I mean, it's the American drug companies brought to the streets. So you keep giving, you want them to take their daily dose of heroin every day, and you don't want them to die because that cuts off your income, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a fentanyl problem in India?
Not that I'm aware of, considering that,
Right.
hey, but we have such strict regulation when it comes to drugs that I don't
Right.
really hear a lot about it. Um,
Really?
yeah, and also that we share a border with China, it should be easier to
Yeah.
get here, right?
You
But
would think they would just, right, but maybe the money. See, I think it's a nefarious thing to kill off 18 to 22-year-olds.
it's like keying your own car, Sean.
Right. It really, but you look at it from, if it's coming from China, so China sends it to Mexico, the drug labs in Mexico are refining. No, they're not. They can barely do methamphetamines and cocaine.
Yeah.
They're not. It's coming in a pure product into Mexico because it's so easy to bribe people there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's being shipped up or mixed. Why would you, if you had, because it's on pot now sometimes that comes up from there, why would you kill off your client base?
Yeah, that's pretty dumb when it, like,
Right.
where are the old school drug dealers, Sean, who used to encourage?
Exactly. The OGs of the good business. But I always looked at it. So I remember a cartoon from when I was about 14 years old. And they
Mhm.
had this, and if I still remember it from, the last century, it was pretty good. And there was a guy on the corner selling crack because crack had just arrived. And this limousine pulls by, and it said the tobacco industry on their license plate. And he rolls down the window and spits on him and goes, "You amateur."
That's a good
That, right. I mean, that is the darkest humor ever,
one.
but we
Mhm.
all know it to be true,
Yeah.
and they can always find somebody to promote it as good. You weren't here when we had cigarette commercials done by doctors
No,
saying one
I would
cigarette was
think.
better than. Did you have those in England?
I think we had them in England and I think we had them in India because I have seen those
Really?
ads where the doctor is like, "Oh, the camel is better for you" or something like that. I've seen on
Yeah,
commercials.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got a filter. um, so we had a quarterback on a Super Bowl winning team named Lynn Dawson, and he
Mhm.
smoked on the sidelines, and
No.
he was literally the best player in the league. And you go, but it was very French of us, I mean, that is
Mhm.
some French shit right
Oh
there.
yeah. Like I remember watching like the old school games where I would see like the senior teams who are playing football, soccer.
Right,
Like
right.
at halftime, you'd see all of them come outside and light up their
Oh
flags,
yeah,
and I'd be like, "What the hell is going on here?"
right. It is very, very, very French. I love it. Hey, Christine, Christine. She says, I listened to your guys' podcast, and that was just like hanging out in the pub. And I was like, well, good. I'm glad you liked it.
She was making fun that she was like, can Sean still not say your name correctly? I was like, I don't know. At this
I can
point,
say
I've just given up.
Deepak Kashmiristan. That's probably as close as I'm going to get. Okay, so here, I will give you my real name in Gaelic. Okumeth. Okumeth. Say it. See if you
I
can
can't
say
do it. Nope. I'm not even going to try it because I know I'm
you
gonna
have to be some spit's going to come out when you say, Okumeth. Yeah. It's like an old person sneeze that has lung disease. But that's Ocointheth.
That's like
I don't really get to.
There was one time where I heard some guy say his name in a Scottish accent, and he goes like Gary, and I was like, "Are you trying to say Gary?" I was like, "Just say Gary, I got it."
Get it. And depending on where they're from in Ireland, my name is either Sean or Sean. And it has an accent called a fada. So, we may make fun of your 15-letter name. Ours all have 15 letters. We just had to shorten them over the years. And, I think the Swedes have us all beat. I think the people from Norway have us all beat on, or maybe Azerbaijan seems to be up there with the 20 or 25 letters names. But, if you're in a place where it matters what your last name is, you keep it. Yeah. If you're in a place in America, nobody gives a shit what your last name is or where you came from or anything else. Can you show up to work and can you do the job? You're hired.
Back in, I think in the second grade or something like that, I got 99 on 100 in English. And do you know what they had circled in my paper that I'd written wrong?
Your name?
Yes.
Get out! Your name? No way. Okay, that's priceless. That is legitimately priceless.
I'm pretty sure my dad or mom must have seen it and been like, what a dumb idiot this
is. Well, I look at you think of an illiterate person showing up to America. Okay, you're going through Ellis Island or wherever you landed, and whoever the guy is talking to you is from some other country also, who may or may not like your country. And so you give him your name and he may write it down correctly and he may not. That's where you get your name, is whatever that guy writes is what you are in America from there on out. We have loads of people when their last name is Scott. Yeah. And it was probably, where are you from? And they're like, Scotland. They're like, Scott. And it's one of those people. They just give you whatever name they want to give you. I mean, it's nuts, man. But I also think, and I'm as bad as anybody. I've got friends of mine that are Vietnamese, and I'm like, man, why don't you just shorten your name and make it easier? And he goes, why don't you shorten your name and make it easier? And I'm like, okay, well played. But
it's so funny. Like most of almost any country's immigration form, I do not put down my full name. Or
do they not have enough spaces?
No, there isn't.
That's classic. Well, my kids' grandparents are from a place called Paseo, Oklahoma. And there's a movie coming out by Martin Scorsese, Killers of the something moon. For anybody.
Blood moon, some
Flower moon. The flower moon. So literally in that town is where my kid's side of the family is from. So really interesting story on the dad's side. He was an abandoned, orphaned Native kid that was adopted by the mayor and his wife of Paseo, Oklahoma, which back then would be really great, because then you kind of get raised white, and nobody wanted to be Native, and you wanted to get rid of the name. Their real name was Spear, like, throwing a spear. And it changed to Leonard, and they would tell people they were Black Dutch. But the whole reason I tell this is we're at the graveyards and we're looking around, and it would be Sitting Bear O'Malley, Whatever the native animal name that you were giving, and or the last name would be some real Gaelic first name.
Hmm.
Siobhan, spelled Soibhan, Fox. I mean, and
Okay.
every single one of them looked to be that way. But now
Hmm.
I'm kind of concerned about how my kids' grandpa and grandma are going to look, because this is a place where white people moved in to take advantage of the literal richest 5,000 people on the planet at the time. It was the
Okay.
original Kuwait. Yeah, literally the original Kuwait.
From
They had an oil. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, from what I heard about the story, isn't that the movie? Isn't that like the start of how the FBI and all of that was created because of the series of murders or some shit that happened?
So I don't know if it was the FBI. I don't
Okay.
know that end of the story, but so I'd read books on it back when I was first together with my kid's mom. Her mom was like, "Well, you should read this book on it, and it's the rise and fall of the Cherokee Nation, and then some stuff about Pahuska." And I can't remember which book it was.
Mhm.
So the Osage tribe used to be up in a center part of the United States, and they got this northern part of Oklahoma that was just absolutely beautiful, and they have rain and good land and everything, and found ungodly amounts of oil under there. And so everybody in the tribe would get their share of this oil. Unlike Americans, where it's all mine, motherfucker, it's all mine, nobody gets anything. They equally shared it. So not only it's complicated, so there was no paperwork on the tribe, so they have to create what's called a roll, so they know everybody that's on it. And of course, it was the government creating the roll. And if they'd
Mhm.
already taken your land and you got shit on and you got moved there, a lot of people said, "I'm not going on your roll." Well, that kept them from being immensely wealthy, that decision.
Okay.
Now, how my kids' grandparents ended up there, I don't know, but they're white. So probably not for the right reasons. And if he ended up being mayor and he owned a gas station and a motel and all this other stuff, I'm going to go ahead and put him in the column of he was probably not the best guy, right? I think it's fair. Um, but the fact that they uh, adopted these two native kids are really pretty surprising. And
Yeah.
then, everybody went through college and all this other stuff and did really well. But the this is going to, I think this is probably going to be the best portrayal of it, because it wasn't a native who filmed it, because then you get the native view. And I'm not sure that many whites really want to watch that view.
Hmm.
They like their version of history better. From you being from India, me being from here or from Ireland, we got stories about how that stuff works. But this is people marrying in and then killing their wives,
Oh wow.
so they could have the shares or the children could have the shares, because it was a patriarchal society. It wasn't matriarchal. Everything
Okay.
went to the man. And
Hmm.
so it's how do you be okay with that? But here's the biggest part: the Osages were considered to be the giants in America. Like, they were 6 foot tall when the Irish were coming over, and were 5 foot tall.
Yeah.
So nobody ever screwed with them. You couldn't fight them. They never lost. So you could barter with them to move from Missouri to there, but they got the best land in Oklahoma. And they ended up on top of a enormous pond of oil. So
Hmm.
literally the Kuwait, with a garden of the area. So for anybody watching or listening, see the movie. I think this, because he was pretty good. Scorsese's been really good on showing criminal organizations, the immigrant experience, and everything else. And now he's reversed it, which I love. We'll see how it goes. I didn't get invited to be in the movie at all.
I'm so sorry about that, Sean.
What did, I know? What did I do wrong? Well, I didn't want to. I didn't want to drive up there and rent hotels and all this other stuff
Mm.
to to be essentially an extra eventually, because I
Mm.
wasn't native. And if you're not a main character and the bad guy, no one's going to remember you anyway. So
Oh yeah.
I,
Be like some dude walking in the background every now and then, and I'll be like,
right
"That's
there I
Sean."
am. There I am. Right. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Killers of the Flower Moon. It's going to be. It's so they did another one a couple of years ago, and everybody was all excited about it till it came out, and it showed the white people that were up there weren't very nice, and everyone was like, "That movie sucks. We never should have helped finance it." And this, and you go, "Was it true?" Because it looked pretty true. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
an interesting thing.
The world is changing around, my man. How much time
Let's
we got?
talk about starting a company and how
Okay.
you go about doing that in the US.
Mhm.
You have what, 26, 30 years experience at this point?
But 40, I'll be 60 years old here in a couple of months. I opened my first business when I was 21. Now, of course, I ran some unregulated businesses before that, meaning like lawn care, shoveling
Mhm.
snow, fake Christmas caroling, and collecting money for charities that I kept. I'm not that I'm not admitting I did that. I'm saying I may have been involved. We Here's the thing, immigrant parents, my dad did not come to America for me to get a medium job at a medium company and do medium well.
Mhm.
His whole deal was you came here so you could do things you couldn't do in Ireland.
Yeah.
So when I turned 21, the only reason I'm giving you a background on this is I did it all when I was 21 years old first. So I'd worked at this college beer bar and pizza place, and it was up for rent. And so I was a senior in college, and I went and negotiated the lease and signed the lease, got everything done. And when I told my parents that I was dropping out of college with 3 months left to go to open my first restaurant, I thought they would be happy. And my mother about wanted to kill me. All right. So you need to understand up front, not everyone's going to support you. Who
Hmm.
gives a shit? Move on anyway. So my dad, of course, was totally fine with it. And that's what he said to my mom. Well, I mean, if that's what the boy wants to do, that's what I came to America for. That's what I have worked like this for. So he knows how to do this. And man, my mom went nuts. And she was nicer than hell, but this was one time she was not. And but I've been self-employed ever since. I really and truly, school wasn't my thing. I have terrible ADD. So all they did was beat the shit out of me in school all the time because I couldn't pay attention. And
Hmm.
what I really needed was something to just move, 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 and I would have been fine with it. So the reason I say all that, opening a business in America is shockingly easy. Now, if you're in the Midwest where they always want more people, it's even easier. So in Oklahoma, for those of you that live in countries where bribes are natural, we don't bribe people here. Literally, you don't have to bribe anybody. You just go in and fill out the paperwork, and then you can hire a lawyer. There's
Hmm.
no reason to. Everything here is dumbed down enough where everybody can do it. And I mean that in a complimentary way. Whoever wrote most of this stuff didn't write it at an intellectual level that you have to have a master's degree to understand. You
Hmm.
go in, they've got step by step, and yes, there'll be some parts you don't understand, everything else, language barriers and all that. You may want to hire a translator if you're from somewhere else because colloquialisms will get you. It isn't the paperwork. So you go online and you fill out your first deal to get what's called a FIN number, FEIN number.
Hmm.
Google how to get a FIN number in America. It'll take you to the website. You fill that out literally the next day, you essentially have your paperwork. It is it is shockingly easy. Where, in Ireland, you basically got to get permission from somebody, not necessarily from the people in charge, or in Italy, you got to talk to your local mob boss and they're going to get 10% of everything. Nothing like that here. You come to Oklahoma, you literally open it. They audit here more than any place I've ever seen. I believe we've been audited 4 times, but two of those I believe are because we were in politics. So FIN number online is number one. And then what you have to know is what city are you in? What town are you in? Go to the city hall and ask them what you need to do. But you're
Yeah.
also in the county government, which is the next one up, and you have to go there and ask them what you need to do. And then the state government. People were shockingly easy to get along with, and really, what they will tell you if you don't know is they're like, yeah, I'm not going to do this for you. I'm going to show you how to do it. And then it's on you to either know how to do it or ask somebody. Us old business people will help anybody get through it because it was frustrating the first time. So what'd you guys do when you started yours? Is that pretty basic?
Us in Oklahoma and all
Yeah.
the companies that we've worked with over the years, especially when
Right.
the startups come to us, right? We help them with all of
Right.
that nonsense. It's
Right.
like 2, 3 hours in our day to just get
Right.
everything up and running.
Yeah.
The weird part was here when I tried doing it about, say, 6 to 8 months ago. It took almost 3 months, Sean, and you can't do it by
Wow.
yourself. You have to get like a kind of like a CPA. They call them chartered
Right.
accountants. And that
Right.
was the only one who knew how to go about doing it. Because
Wow.
right
Yeah.
from incorporation to getting like what would be our employment identification number type thing, which is
Right.
a PAN card here, which is your tax ID. Like there were times where he didn't know what was going, I didn't know what was going, and
Wow.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't hear from him for like 3 weeks because it's just stuck in some office waiting for approvals,
Yeah.
and it cost maybe like 10 times what it cost me in the US to do.
Yeah. Right.
Mm.
So is that because it's a British setup system where they don't, I
I
mean, whether you guys like it or not, that's still your government base,
mm-hmm.
you know? And so they set it up so only the elites could start things. And they're not telling you you can't do it. They're just making it so hard you can't do it. Okay. Over here, the lowest caste system over there, which is the untouchables, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get off the plane in America and you come and get your FIN number and you can start what you were doing over there, cleaning toilets, doing whatever you were doing as a cleaning company and be in business within a week.
Oh yeah.
Within a week, and you can be working and making money. Nobody cares where you're from. They don't care about your caste, anything else, but do pay your taxes and do keep good records because they
Yep.
audit more than I am shocked by the amount of auditing here. Just
Mm-hmm.
flabbergasted. So in Kansas City, where I am originally from, when I was 21 years old, I got my applications. It was all done on paper back then because it was 40 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had to do my liquor license. So I go down to liquor control. And I asked them for the forms, and they gave me a 3-page sheet that had like 30 items, and I had to do drawings. You don't need to hire an architect for any of this stuff. You draw it yourself. They just need a more or less drawing. It doesn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And where you get screwed if you just came off the boat from some other country is whoever the person you know in America is going to get a pretty large fee for helping you. And part of that is just because you don't know. Ask the people at liquor control. I made my own drawings and everything else, but I had to get these neighbors' permission for me to be able to do a liquor license. And that's the only time it got tricky. I basically had a neighbor that was a plumber, and I had to use him as my plumber to get him to sign off my liquor license. Yeah, bit of a prick, and he overcharged me. And
I
but
don't even think they issue liquor licenses in Bangalore at the moment. I think it's like
no,
capped off. And
really,
I have seen like weird situations where somebody who holds an existing liquor license, you can rent
yeah,
it from them,
right.
but it's
Welcome to
almost like,
Chicago.
oh, but it's almost like $10,000 or $15,000, Sean, a month.
Right. Yeah.
And the entire liquor license, if you do want to buy it, it would be somewhere around the 500,000 range.
Yeah. So Chicago works that way.
Mm-hmm.
They only allowed a certain amount of liquor licenses, kind of like New York. You have to have a coin to own a taxi cab.
Oh yeah.
So the taxi isn't worth anything. The
Mm-hmm.
coin's worth everything. Now, why they don't go have the Italians counterfeit those coins and make a bunch of other ones? Because, that's what I'm not saying that's what I would do, but it's available. Here's the thing. In major cities in the U.S., everything is more difficult. You just have to be the person that's willing to walk through all that stuff. What
Mm.
I am saying is in the 4 states in the Midwest, maybe even 20 states in the Midwest, hell, we need business owners. You just have to be the one that's willing to do the paperwork. And what you're up against there probably happens in some of the bigger cities here. But in Oklahoma, I have never paid a bribe to anyone for anything. I will tell you a weird story, though. In the city where I'm the vice mayor is where I opened my first business.
Mm-hmm.
They were so.
Did you hear that noise of a bell ringing?
You hear one right now?
No. Did you hear it in my background?
Yes, I do hear that.
Okay. Do you know what that is? It's a guy who pushes a cart
Yeah,
which
what's he saying?
has it's like a pan with clean sand in it, and
Yeah.
all he does is roast peanuts on it.
Get out.
Yeah.
So I've seen that done with rocks, but never with sand.
So he uses sand so
Okay.
that he gets an even roast around it, and also the amount of salt that gets on the coating for the peanuts, it's almost perfect. So
Wow.
he just pushes the cart throughout the streets, and you can go downstairs and buy a
Good
bunch
for him.
of peanuts.
I tell you what, that guy would do just fine in America.
I know.
That's cool. Hey, so back to my Conor McGregor story. So I watch it, and the guy gets like 2 likes, and that's it after hours. And I wrote him back, and I go, "Look, you're gonna have to get better game. You've name dropped Conor McGregor, and nobody still likes your stuff." And so he wrote something else shitty back, but his English is like uneducated bad, not like a bot bad. So I've been playing with him for a couple of days. Yeah. Well, our Democratic elections are this weekend, so people are getting a little tense.
Okay.
Yeah. We're half of the people are acting like everything's great, and the other half are like, "We're the Titanic. We just hit an iceberg. Fuck." Yeah.
I'll probably be the guy in the movie. Anytime I picture the Titanic, the only
Right.
person I think of is that guy who fell through the middle of the ship, hit his head on something, and went to the water. Like I would go out that way, knowing my luck.
You would want to go out that way because man, that water was cold. Woo, God. Just think people do that on purpose. What were we talking about yesterday or 2 days ago that we were supposed to continue today? Do you remember?
We were talking about business and the village paperwork for opening a business is what you still
Oh,
before we got.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we were originally talking about it, so you got to get a thing called an occupational license. I don't really care what business you do, whether it's out of a home that can be used as a business or anything else. That is a license you have to get. And then there's something, that you literally how do I open a new business for the federal government? And you get I'm trying to remember whether it's not I-99. I'm thinking that's for immigration, but
Mm-hmm.
it's you get your FIN number, FEIN. Sorry, I got so many goddamn
Yeah.
numbers. I don't know which. FEIN number, and that's your company, and you're ready to get started. But if it's retail, you need to pay sales tax. So you
Mm-hmm.
got to find out what the sales tax is in your city and wherever you sell it. So on the village city council, we get a ton more sales tax than we used to because people do Uber Eats and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
So they buy it in Oklahoma City, but
Mm-hmm.
it's sold in the village because that's where it's delivered. So we get sales tax there, which is higher. And if you don't know that, that comes out of your pocket. I'll tell you a big mistake. A big mistake I made here is I didn't understand the liquor tax because in the state I'm from, we don't have liquor tax. And it was 13.5% of my sales, which is about your profit margin.
Jesus Christ, that
All
high?
gone. All gone. And then sales tax on top of it, 8.75%. Yeah, so it's 22% of any retail booze.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Baptists, they don't want you to drink.
Yeah, fucking buzzkills.
It's literally instead of the moral police coming, it's the tax police coming to hit you. So I those are the things you got to be careful of, and it's just a matter of being polite. So what I would tell you, I don't know, you'll have to tell me how it works there. Bring coffee, bring donuts. It'll cost you $10 or $12. Everyone there will remember you.
Yeah.
Bring a pizza. I mean, if you don't want to bring any of that other stuff, go, hey, I know sometimes you guys can't get out for lunch, so I brought a pizza. You're not bribing them. That's just a nicety.
Yeah.
If it can be eaten or drank in one setting, it's not a bribe.
Are we going through the technicalities of this?
How'd you like that one?
There was this lady who messaged me and asked me if I knew about how to set up a business in the village. And I was like, hey, I'm right now not in the country, but here's Sean's number. If you want, just text him and he'd probably know.
Yeah, right. So now if I was an illegal person, I would say for a fee, I will gladly do. But yeah, I'll just take her up. I'll meet her up at City Hall and walk her through it. I think most people are just shocked at how easy it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really are. And it's not that way in every place. So the more populated, the more difficult. We do. Yeah, go ahead.
Being an immigrant, it was easy for me to set up businesses there as well.
Yeah,
And,
right. Nobody cares. I mean, they
mm-hmm.
really don't care. But you do have to pay your taxes. Oh God, in Oklahoma,
yeah.
you get audited. Jesus. Wow. I don't know what the deal is on that, but evidently some people have cheated through the years, and that's why they audit that much.
It'll all be the guys who made like millions to billions, and they'll come and fuck with all the normal businesses who are like
Right.
holding it together and taking care of families. That happens.
Well, every time they do it, it costs me about $10,000 in accounting fees.
Mm-hmm. Oh
You know,
yeah.
by the time it's done, just getting the paperwork ready, you know, we have it all. By the
Mm-hmm.
time you get it ready, then your accountant goes over it. And if you have a high-end accountant, they go meet with the government people. You don't even meet with them. But when I first moved here, I met with them. And after this long, arduous deal, the guy was like, "You owe us whatever the amount was." And I go, "No, I don't." And he goes, "Yeah, we say you owe us this." And I go, "I don't owe it to you." And literally, we fought about it for a little bit. And he was insinuating that I'd taken in cash and kept it. And I go, "Hey, if cash came in, I would have kept it. But I'm telling you, there's no cash in high-end restaurants. It just doesn't exist. So you're literally making up a lie about the number you're telling me I owe you." And then it really went south from there. Because he just made it up out of the blue.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so you want to believe that they're there to help you, and they're really not necessarily. They're there to get a promotion like every other job.
Mm-hmm. Oh
You
yeah.
know? Right. So it's no difference than the tax collectors 1,500 years ago. They got a portion back then of what they collected. These guys get a paycheck and then they get a raise, you know. So
Yeah, it would have been
I
weird,
mean
like commission agents running around.
right. Can you imagine? So my big thing is, if you come over here, why come to America and not own your own company?
Oh yeah.
Why bother?
Mm-hmm.
You know, my dad would say, "Well, I could have done that back in Ireland." And you go, "Well, okay, why didn't you?" So that's my thing. Oklahoma City, different deal. I think it's important that you call and find out where you want to set up your business, depending on what type it is, you know?
Yeah,
Like what you do, you don't need to be in a major city to do that.
not at all.
You need to have access to a major city, but you don't need to be in one.
See, every time I had
Yeah.
to meet some client, I would either go to Austin or New York, wherever they were, and I'd see them in person. They
Right.
just didn't care
Yeah.
about where we were based out of. And I was like,
No.
it works out fine for us.
Yeah. Are you capable of doing the work? That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, your guy selling peanuts on sand would do just fine, but he needs to be in a major city.
Yeah, for sure. And one
Right.
that
So
doesn't
how's
have
it?
a very harsh winter.
Right. Good point. And the Italians would roast chestnuts that way and sell chestnuts.
Mhm.
And I never really thought they tasted very good, but Kathy absolutely and utterly loves them.
I've seen them in New York.
Yeah. Right. And they're all over Italy when you travel through Italy. And they're guys, and they just literally, they got a cheap pan there and propane stove, and you know, they do their thing. But I like the sand. That's a little more balanced. That's smart.
Mhm.
And it keeps its heat, so you're not losing the heat. And that's pretty dang smart. Cool. All right, homie. What's next, my man?
I'll tell you a couple of depressing stories just because we've been too happy for a while.
Okay. Right. Here we go, folks.
The other day, a friend of mine who is visiting her family in India got on a flight in Bangalore to Seattle,
Right.
died on the plane in Canadian airspace.
Wow.
My age, Sean, she had an aneurysm.
No shit.
Yeah, and it's going to take
Well,
like 3 weeks to get the body back and stuff like that.
wow.
Like people don't understand, like even with air travel, the complexity of doing this shit is still there, even with the internet and crap. Like my sister
Wow.
was telling me that one of her friends' mums who is in Bangalore passed away, but the kids, one is settled in the US, the other is settled in the UK, and the guy, her son who was in the UK, was visiting the US. So he doesn't even
Right.
have his card to enter India. So he has to fly
Oh,
back to the
wow.
UK, pick that thing up, and come here. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Now you understand
Yeah.
my frustration with like visas and shit where I'm
Yeah.
constantly grumbling about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that young lady. I'm sure she had the blast headache before, but you know, when you're up in the air, nothing you can do about it anyway. If there's a doctor on the plane, it's notoriously a dentist. So, or a PhD, you know, in mathematics. So, that sucks. But So there is a guy that did a speech that came out with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And I'm not saying this because he's Indian. He just happened to be Indian. He's up on the stage and takes a big drag off this cigarette and blows it out. And the audience kind of goes, oh, and he goes, what? He goes, oh, you think this is what's going to kill me? Let me tell you statistically what's actually going to kill you. Your DNA.
Mhm.
He goes, I can smoke. You can smoke your whole life, do all this stuff. Your DNA is what kills you. And so I'd be curious if the aneurysm was in her family or if it was from something different,
No, I would.
some head trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you should watch that speech, by the way. And it's Toastmasters. Like he was the national champion of Toastmasters, and
Okay.
he was brilliant. Yeah, I mean that he could be a comedian anywhere, even in America. But he was dynamite. So when you get into your nice depressing stuff like that, Deepak,
Mhm.
what I learned in my life out of this whole thing is so I got sick about 10 or 12 years ago. Couldn't figure out what it was, and all my lung stuff went through everything, and it isn't whether you're worried about dying. It's watching loved ones around you that are scared to death that you're dying, and that's the weird part. I don't know. I don't know if I really care if I fall off the planet, but if I get Parkinson's, I'm trying heroin. We're gonna try some shit I've never done before and get it over with.
There's this
Maybe
awesome thing that Ricky Gervais says about death and being an idiot. He's like, it's only painful to others.
That was brilliant. Well, so I think I might try fentanyl at that point, and whatever drug I never got to try back when I used to do drugs and drink. I'm trying if I get Parkinson's or something that is ALS, some dreadful ass disease that all it does is just screw up everyone around you's life. So I have given all of that some thought. So I'll give you my one little example here so we don't depress everybody too bad. So I'm having I don't know what the hell it was, pneumonia. So I'm having some convulsions and shit. And that's what started my teeth problem, which now are costing me a fortune. But I cracked some of them because I had a damn mouthpiece next to my bed to put in my mouth to stop it. I mean, how crazy is that shit?
Oh, wow.
And then 10 years later, I'm absolutely, totally fine.
Hmm.
Right. So I don't know, man, my people like funerals. We like to drink at funerals. We like to have fun at funerals. So we are probably not the people to ask because
I know.
we think you're better. We think you're better off after you're dead, where most people think life is where all the good stuff is. And we're like, no, it's next. We'll see what's next. I mean, we're strange.
Powers told me this awesome story about I think it was an aunt or someone of his who had passed
Yeah.
away, and they were at the funeral, and
Right.
Powers was just standing there quietly, and his dad looked at him and he told him, "If you're gonna be sad, do it on your own time. People need you here right now."
Okay, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. I always like standing around the coffin and people go up and they go, "Oh, he looks so good." And you're like, am I supposed to point out the irony right now or not? You've got makeup on. I mean, it is literally like a Republican talking point. You have makeup on, you have lipstick on, they've sewn your eyes shut. They look really good. They look really good. Yeah, it's
You should just tell them, I wish you'd taken half this fucking effort in a day-to-day life.
are they exercising now? Because they never fucking did while they were alive. Look, I had these 4 guys in last night, and this customer of mine introduces them to me, and they're in his Tai Chi group. And I go, where do you do Tai Chi? And they were like, at this church. And then they talked about some other more radical version of something like Tai Chi. And he told me what it was. And he said, but it's based on Taoism. And I said, so you're practicing Taoism in your Christian church and everybody's cool with it? And he goes, well, I don't really know what it is. It's like the bus tub buffet of international religions.
I know.
But they were for people my age, and the only reason this is a problem for you now is because you smashed your face in an Uber. I mean, you should be in prime health right now, aside from that you have arthritic points in your face where it broke. I mean,
Yeah.
you got 4 plates in your head. Do you know this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm not telling you this because I went to med school. I had a guy trying to manipulate them, and that's the only reason I knew. He was
What the
trying to
hell
clear out
were
my.
you? Why the hell did you let somebody fuck with your head?
Well, so this girl that I really had a huge crush on freshman year in high school does the same thing out in, some really North Carolina, some city in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, where the universities are. Yeah, and she does the same thing. It's cranial manipulation. So, like with me, I don't know if it's due to behavior or getting beat up in football or fist fights or whatever else, but you couldn't breathe out of half of my nose, even though I've had surgery on it.
Mm-hmm.
He manipulated that a little bit, and it seemed to open it up. And I don't know whether it was psychosomatic, or if it was real, but it seemed better.
I should try something like that, I think, in the future.
Well, I mean, they might have to re-break yours.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, like an arm. I mean, you hit pretty hard, dude.
Oh, they couldn't do anything for the first week, right? Because they were waiting for the swelling to come down. So some of
Right.
them just healed in whatever angles they were in.
Uh-huh.
That's another
Right.
weird thing of telling me not to sneeze, which made me so conscious because they were like, dude, there's nothing holding your eyeballs in. Don't sneeze.
Wow.
Because
God,
both
that's
the
a
orbital sockets had got crushed. Because I went to
wow.
the
No
back of
shit.
the front seat, the driver's seat. Because I think I
Yeah.
was sitting behind the driver. Ugh.
Damn. What happened to the driver?
Oh, he was bad, way worse than me.
Really? Wow.
Like, by the time the EMTs got there, I actually had to get out and unbuckle his seatbelt because there was like a rib sticking out and his leg
Oh,
crushed. So I
damn.
just put my hand on that and tried to hold it in place till they got there.
Right.
Uh,
Ah. All right. Now we've depressed everybody
I
that's
know.
listening at this point. Hold on. Is that the sound of people changing the station? Everybody
Okay.
loves gore. Everybody loves gore. So you really don't have to move away from gore.
Okay, we'll talk about technology because I saw the most fascinating thing I've seen in a while. Okay.
You're going to talk to a 60-year-old man about technology.
Oh no, this
Okay,
is like
let's.
very in general. So
Okay.
there are these guys that I see in the evenings where they all are they wear their headsets and they just sit at a pub and have beers while they're taking their conference calls and finishing their work.
All right.
Yesterday, I just noticed that none of them were typing any of their emails. They would copy the email that they were supposed to reply to, paste it in Chat GPT. Chat GPT would reply. They copy
Get
that
out.
back and put it in there. And there was one dude who basically wrote a farewell letter through Chat GPT and sent it to someone. And I was like, dude, what the hell is going on?
Dude, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so they don't
So,
answer questions. Like anybody asks them a question, even if they know the answer, they type it in there because it's more elegantly written by ChatGPT.
right, it really is. And so, for somebody like me,
Mhm.
that I really just don't do punctuation well. I mean, I speak well, but I just don't do punctuation well. Chat GBT solves that for me. So, look, it is the future, undoubtedly. That's a great way to use it. And for evidently source code, that's a great way to use it. So my thing is I wrote a scathing letter to this guy that's our school superintendent, and I ran it through Chat GBT and gave it his information. It was brilliant. I
Nice.
mean, literally brilliant. Yeah. So I don't. I think it's going to be like a lot of things. So right now it's new, so everybody messes with it. We'll probably become more selective about it down the line. But I could write a novel in Chat GBT in one day.
Oh yeah.
And you just do, your chapters need to be about 350 or 400 words. And you give them the descriptive of it, but you still have to outline your novel. And the problem I found in writing that kind of stuff was I would do my outlines and then I would start writing and it would slow the process down so much it wasn't fun anymore. And ChatGPT solves that stuff. And so I don't, from a restaurateur's perspective, if I'm answering somebody's stuff, I just go ahead and throw out my snotty little answers anyway. ChatGPT is not snarky enough for me, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And There needs to be a passive aggressive
Yeah.
or a British mode that I can use to.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, my most disappointing thing is if somebody's trying to be mean and they're not creative, I am bored with them. Like it puts me in attack mode where I'm like, please go get a thesaurus, find something interesting to say, and get back with me.
But
I do not understand.
I was reading this article where ChatGPT apparently ran into an issue that it couldn't solve. So it basically logged itself into Fiverr, posted a job posting for someone to click
Get
the
out.
test so that it could get past that level.
Okay, that's brilliant.
It's intelligent enough to use a human when it needs to beat an obstacle.
So there's another one that I use called SUD something, and it's a writer's accessory tool. So you would punch in a paragraph, and then there's like a deal that you click enhance or something like that, and it will rewrite it for you. But the reason I like GBT is you can say in the style of George Carlin. I would like this, and it does a moderate job. But the problem is you don't have George Carlin narrating it, so it doesn't have that feel. But I like the fact that you can do the in the style of. But who are you going to do? Yeats? I mean, literally, who's your favorite? E. Cummings. He was never my favorite poet, but we seemed related. Because his shit was dystopian and strange. But
I think I would use Carlin even for business emails.
Right? That'd be awesome. Hey, fuckers. It is. I think for a comedy sketch, it would find the most riveting, popular comedic stuff.
Yeah.
So have I told you this thing about this guy talking about stealing intellectual property of a map? Have I told you this bullshit?
Nope.
Okay, with everything that's available on the internet that both you and I at a click can go worldwide and share and bother anything we want, and everybody shares and bothers your stuff, and everybody shares and bothers my stuff, right? So this guy makes a map of our state of Oklahoma, and it is how many counties no longer have Democratic officials, right? Somebody in his office, he leaves it open, they steal it, and it ends up in our mailbox here at the restaurant. Kathy ends up putting it out on the internet. This guy throws a fit, and they're like, she stole my intellectual property, man. And so it's been Mapgate for about a week. And as soon as somebody said, hey, that's not finished yet, can you please take it down? She did. So there's no issues with all this other stuff. But I don't think these people know what's available.
Yeah.
I can go to ChatGPT and make that map.
In 10 minutes, I could give it to
you. Right. And you go, friend, you have no idea what you're actually up against. So you've heard me on the phone sometimes when I'm not being pleasant. He called me to ask me questions about it. And so, of course, I'm MFing him and cussing him up and down and everything. Why are you wasting my time? I said, tell me what I did wrong here. He's like, well, and I go, why are you effing bothering me? Literally, why are you bothering me? I don't even know who you are. And so it all went south. So evidently they're mad at me. No. Mapgate. That's what we've got going. Some asshole thinks he owns a map that I can go and make on multiple sites in minutes.
Oh God, people love petty.
Right. I know. So there used to be this term called so in America it's cracker sitting on a fence trying to make $1 out of 50 cents, meaning this guy is always charging more than it's worth, right? A friend of mine had a term about Mexicans. He goes, everything's cheaper on the south side, meaning you can go to the south side of Oklahoma City and get it 35-40% cheaper. And I would say in this case with this guy with the map, you might go back to the cracker sitting on the fence because you go, I don't know what value you think is placed here, my man, but it's just a map of Oklahoma with shades of red and blue.
Couldn't anyone have figured out how many Democratic officials are still left in office in Oklahoma on their own?
Yes,
Wikipedia.
Because you can count them on your two hands.
Yeah, that too.
Right. And instead, the guy's arguing with one of us. That's like, I mean, you just go, dude, you need to go find some voters and quit calling me.
Couldn't you have just been like, listen, idiot, we're on the same side. Tell me what you want.
I don't know what is happening. So, okay, so let's say rats were vegetarians
Mm-hmm.
and you put 100 rats in the bottom of a barrel and they can't get out. Do they become meat eaters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they got to eat each other.
Yep.
So, when they were out in the world and it was plentiful and they could get around, they were vegetarians. But once they had to eat each other, they do. And I would say that's the deal here. And it's sad and it's tragic, but shit, the consequences of not being better at this is that we've literally got a fucking Nazi running our schools.
Yeah.
And a guy that did white power signs running our schools. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what gets worse, but that's where you indoctrinate kids. I mean, that's where it happens. So
I'm not going to tell you anything on this beside yes, no, I don't know. After that article I sent you about that Sri Lankan comic who was arrested.
Yeah, you don't want any part of that. Well, especially since somebody over there reminds me of somebody over here.
Mm-hmm.
So look, the most polite people don't want to be involved in the ugly side of politics. I mean, they just don't. They don't want ugly anything. They just want to go through life with no problems, which means you have a very, very, very boring life. But that's where people stand. Yeah, and the other stuff makes them nervous. So, you're in the golden handcuffs life, or you're in the other one where you're fighting for something. And they'd go, well, why are you always fighting? And you go, because these assholes are always doing something. I mean, it really, and I'm fighting for people that I don't even know. I mean, truthfully, I don't have any kids in school. It doesn't matter to me. I just think the guy's an asshole, and I know I can take him. Probably not the right reason, huh?
I know. Pretty petty of you, Sean.
It really is. So I went ahead and took on, second or third most powerful person on the stage just to see if I could do it. Yeah, man. So it's that stuff's interesting, and so this weekend is a big weekend. Mm-hmm. Because of that, we need to make some different decisions. But I mean,
tell me what elections are coming up right now.
So these are not elections that matter to anyone except people within the Democratic Party. So we've had the same lady and her crew of friends running the party for about 4 years, and it has just gone steadily downward. Here's an example, okay? I'm not going to say I'm a numbers guy, but on this one, I think I'm a numbers guy. So in registered voters since January, okay, just January, the Republicans gained 12,000 voters. The independents gained 12,000 voters. So your expectation would be what, as far as the Democrats go? How many do you think they should gain if both other ones?
12,000 if they're doing the job right.
Exactly. Guess how much they gained?
I thought you were going to tell me they lost 24,000 to these two.
No. Well, that's probably true. They gained 3,000. So these are in voter registration. So they just got beat 24,000 to 3.
Oh, wow.
Or 24,000 to 3,000. Yeah. And so you go, but then nobody wants to admit there's a problem. So if there's no second party, one party literally rules the whole thing. The problem isn't that. The problem is they have the judges as well. They have the district attorney that have been voted in. The judges are an appointment usually. So they've been appointed or voted in. Same deal. So it's like prosecuting Donald Trump. You don't get to. His people are everywhere. He was there long enough to get all of his people in. So it is unnerving at best, but that's where the fight has to begin. And I don't, how do you resurrect a party that's dead? Honestly, when the other party controls the media.
I did see you try the last time because you made me sit through the damn voting session.
I did. It was awesome. You were great. But so that's where you start. You have to start at that level, whether you like it or not. And somebody with some energy. It isn't really a management job. Part of it is, but really what you need is energy. Yeah. And we just don't have any. And the problem is everybody takes all that personal. And you know me well enough to say, oh, he's not personal at all. He's just saying you suck. and in every race in Democratic politics now, the race is what the race is about. So the good news on this one, it's two black females, so we don't have to talk about race this time.
Okay.
One of them will succeed. But every other time, if anyone chose to challenge her doing such a poor job, it always was like, well, why would you do that? She's a black female. And you go, okay, but if it was me, would you all challenge me? I mean, I don't, at what point are we going to hold people accountable, And then I had somebody on the campaign trail say, how can I vote for you and not look like a racist? And I was like, wow, okay, this is not a question I was prepared for.
That's a level of polarization that you don't really know how to answer.
Right, you just go, can we put resumes next to each other without our names on it and choose? I mean, but I understood what they meant, because these are not private votes; these are public votes. So if you're up there and they're voting for you, and all the brown people vote for you, and all the white people vote for me, we're not doing well as a party, right? I mean, I want to believe we're going to get beyond this, but I don't know down here, bro.
Let's not end on such a bleak note, Sean.
Oh no. Here's the thing. You have to be able to cross over. It's just like the music business. If you're going to be really big in music, you got to cross over to multiple markets. If you're only going after your market, you better hope your market's big enough to sustain you. And in Democratic politics, it's not. I'm in a state with a little less than 1 million Native Americans. Very few are represented in politics, period. Very few. Very few Latinos, and we've got tons. It seems to be blacks and whites, and very, very, very few Asians.
Yeah. So, do you think it has something to do with some of the immigrants staying to them, like keeping to themselves because they don't want to get their hands dirty, so to speak, in politics?
Mostly as an immigrant, you don't want to make enemies, because you think somebody still has the capability of sending you home.
Yeah.
Once you're a citizen, fuck that. No, nobody gets to send you home. That is not how it works once you're a citizen. If you're just walking around with a green card, be careful being on the wrong side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to say that. But look, you can work behind the scenes. Nobody ever sees you. Whoever the computer person is organizing the information, nobody ever sees. Right?
That's why I get away with shit, Sean.
That is right. Well, I mean, you think about it. Look, the person in the front is generally not the person in charge. There's a king and there's a king maker. And that king maker has made 5 or 6 kings. You're not the first. You're just the next one to carry the torch. And so who's ever out front, usually I don't work out front. You know me, I prefer in the back. So this is a new thing for me to be out front, which I'm good at. I mean, it's no big deal, but that's the person whose head gets cut off.
Oh, yeah.
The king maker just finds another king.
Yeah. Potential candidate to push forward.
Right. So is that a little happier now? Hey, look, in everything, in everything here, what is your goal? What do you want to own? When you came to America, what do you want to do? You want to make money. You want to be a person of your peers, meaning everybody knows you. In your case, you were probably the smartest guy in the room most of the time. That's about as good as it gets. And then the rest of it, the money comes and goes. Money is not that simple. It is energy. It comes and it goes.
Ebbs and flows, right? Like most things.
Yeah, exactly. So, somebody will listen to this podcast and write me back and go, you said this, and because everybody's watching every sentence, and I'm not even running for office. I don't know what this shit's about, but I got a bunch of. It feels like I have 10 ex-wives on my ass telling me what I did wrong 30 years ago.
I'm going to combine almost all of this into one, so that if they want to sit through an hour and a half of us talking, they're welcome to
go. Yeah. Hey, I think this is a good one if people are lonely. They can just listen to us hang out.
You have a couple of friendly voices, like you're sitting around an Irish pub, but just talking shit.
Exactly. Bouncing shit off the walls.
That's what Christine told me yesterday. She was like,
Yeah,
it feels like having you guys at the pub. I'm just
right.
listening to you two.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, I did make some Thai red curry um catfish soup yesterday that was delicious.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was nice. I'd do that again.
It sounds yummy, but if you'd used any other fish, I'd have eaten it.
Well,
I
well,
have a problem with catfish.
well, they are bottom feeders, but that's lobster are bottom feeders, and it doesn't bother you. But lobster,
But you
are
don't
they
get
just
that
more
much of.
elegant bottom feeders?
Hey, they the lobster lobby spent way more on marketing, so I'm
Right.
on board. Who has spent money on
Lobster,
lobbying?
right. Lobster looks like it's a bottom feeder. We sound like we're talking about hookers. Well, I don't like that one because lordy, lordy,
Since we have
lordy.
like
All right.
2 minutes left, I'll tell you
Oh, okay.
the last thing, which was
Yes.
somebody got in touch with me asking us whether we could fix their website till I realized it was an escort service in Vegas.
Oh, huh. Well, it's legal there.
I know. I was like, I know it's legal. I was like, what am I doing on this site? May I know? Now I'm just going to see ads for the stupid place for the rest of eternity on this computer.
Well, it is legal out there. You remember I had a Muslim guy write my weed cookbook, and I had to ask him. I said, is this going to bother you? And he goes, it doesn't mean I'm having any weed. And I was like, okay, we're good.
So that's the same thing the guy in Pakistan also told me when I was asking him about your weed channel. He was like,
Right.
it's videos, Deepak. It's not like you're sitting next to me blowing weed in my face.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. It's you never know that. I like it that people are not on their moral high horse on that kind of stuff, but that's pretty rare. I mean, it's pretty rare. But if you're in your line of work, there's probably some odd looking stuff occasionally.
Oh yeah.
Undoubtedly.
The best idea I've ever heard of was for an application which was pitched to us called Struber.
Yeah.
It's a Uber with strippers who will be dropped off at your house and picked up at a later time.
Brilliant. Okay, that's pretty Struber. That is not a bad idea. That was a good one. You might want to follow up on that. My brother wanted to open a topless donut shop one time, and he goes, "You have to be packed." And I go, "Man, dude, I can't own something like that while mom's still alive. I mean, she would not be okay with that." And he goes, "Who gives a shit? Everybody's got clothes."